Sociocultural psychology.
What is a perspective in psychology? Well, a perspective is a school of thought that helps people look and explain aspects of human behavior. There are 7 main modern perspectives, but we are focusing on sociocultural.
The sociocultural perspective is a combination of social psychology and cultural psychology. Social psychology is the study of groups, social roles, and roles of social actions and relationships. Cultural psychology is the study of cultural norms, values, and expectations.
Sociocultural psychology combines the areas of social psychology and cultural psychology. Both areas study the effect that people have on one another.
Lev Vygotsky was a Soviet psychologist. He focused on the development of children and how their interactions with each other help them to develop as people, and also how interacting with others is different based on the child's culture. Properly developing cognitive processes is crucial to passing down cultural traits from generation to generation. One's community is very important to one's identity.
So the 3 different methods in sociocultural psychology are imitative learning, instructed learning, and collaborative learning. To begin, imitative learning is when you see an action being performed by a friend or a model, and then you perform that same action in a similar manner. Instructed learning is when you are being lectured by an adult or somebody with a lot of wisdom. Collaborative learning is when you associate with your friends to gain intelligence.
In sociocultural perspective, Vygotsky believed in a zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is your span for all the knowledge and skills that you have the ability to learn, but you haven't learned yet.
Diffusion of responsibility is a tendency to feel that someone else is responsible for taking action when others are present.
This results in the bystander effect.
For example, Jim is a senior in high school who has good grades and plays on the varsity baseball team. Jim has plenty of friends but chooses to avoid the party scene, and in doing so avoids trouble. After his team wins a championship, he decides one night out wouldn't hurt. Once Jim arrives to the party to celebrate the win, he is surrounded by alcohol and drugs. Jim attempts to avoid these illegal substances because he knows it could affect his chances at playing baseball in college. Jim even attempts to leave the party early. However, his friends insist on him staying and start handing him alcoholic beverages. Jim does not want to be seen as different or become ostracized by his team for not drinking, so he chooses to take the beverage. Jim, after his 1 beer, continues to have even more. Eventually, the alcohol starts affecting him. Luckily enough, Jim did not drive to the party and his friends put him to bed. Once the morning came around, he questions his decision.
Why would Jim go against his norms and underage drink, putting his college baseball experience at risk? Jim went to a psychologist named Dr. Smith, who attempted to explain his actions from the previous weekend at the party. Dr. Smith chooses to take a socio-cultural view on the situation and concludes that consistent peer pressure from his friend was the reason that he chose to consume the alcohol. Dr. Smith took into account that Jim's choice was a result of wanting to fit in socially amongst his baseball peers.